in your life you get this word and then it just stays with you. Let's jam, right? Cammie, you said let's jam, and you're like, let's jam, let's do this. We've never done this before. I haven't had this many guests on the podcast before, but we're going to attempt to do something live. This is not orchestrated. Amy, Cammie, Steven, you're all meeting for the first time. I've connected with all of you, had great conversations. I'm going to quickly introduce what this is about. In this episode, we're going to tackle the persistent friction in the MQL to SQL handoff. If you're listening to this, you don't have that friction, you're not going to be interested in this episode. You can bail, listen to another one. If you're in B2B and you don't experience it, whoa, I'm not sure what you're doing, either right or wrong. That's a whole other conversation. We're going to focus on the financial services and SaaS, where trust, timing, and life events, they define the customer journey. Got to meet them where they are. These are high stakes in the wealth transitions to fast-paced lifecycle and marketing. Amy, Cammie, and my co-host Steven, we're going to break down the approach to personalization at scale, why human connection not just still matters, but I think will continue to matter, and how do we deploy AI agents to solve their most time-consuming SOPs. That's the theme of this season. We've got magic wands. We're all magicians. Everything's possible just for the moment, and we're going to go out and we're going to build an SOP that's going to or an AI agent that's going to solve an SOP. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath, too many cups of coffee. We're going to get into a quick icebreaker. We're going to start with you, Cammie.
All right.
What's something that's unexpectedly made your current role more fun, right? More fun or energizing than your previous jobs?
Oh, great question. 4 years ago, we started at Aspiriant, a podcast, and I'm a co-host. And it's so special. It's called Money Tales. And my co-host and I also are a partner at Aspiriant, Sandy Brager. We interview a guest, or we really have a conversation with a new guest every week. And we talk about money. And we demonstrate that money does not have to be a taboo topic. And the more we talk about it, the more confident we are, financial literacy, we understand things that are holding us back, etc. And what I love, since I'm the head of marketing, chief marketing officer, it's a way for us to demonstrate our value proposition, which is what we do every day. We talk to clients about money, and they tell us how much they appreciate that they have us in their lives to have those conversations. So it's been such a gift.
Podcast host to podcast host, Cammie. If
Isn't
there's
it
anything
fun?
I could do better, please let me know. I want to
You do
learn.
the
I want to
same.
improve.
Me too.
Amy, could you share something unexpected in your current role that's fun and energizing?
Yeah, so Pipe is a embedded financial services for software platforms, and so our overall go-to-market motion is a B to B to B. And just backing up for a second, prior to Pipe, I've been here for about a year now. Prior to Pipe, I was at Square for a good amount of time and marketing directly to SMBs themselves. And so it was a very, very similar to almost kind of like a B2C motion where we were, acquiring small businesses to come onto the Square platform. And this motion at Pipe is very different because we are finding partners who are going to be good fits for us. And so that is an entire, very similar to an account-based marketing and sales motion that I'm working with the team on. But also once we do sign a partner, we get access to so many of their small businesses who then adopt our product. And so I think it's really fascinating, just the different go-to-market journeys that my role kind of helps me take today. So it's been super fun. I've been learning a ton and just really excited to dig in.
I think you got to experience both worlds to truly appreciate how different they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
B2B and B2C.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
absolutely.
All right, Steven, let's go to you. Something that is fun and energizing.
I think for me, it's the ability at Mabbly for us to just test all these new technologies in the space. The evolution of AI agents and how big and drastic those workflows can change kind of everybody's daily process and task lists and all that kind of stuff. We've really been playing with all of these different elements, both on the Copilot side, the agent side, and just looking for efficiencies and how do we continue to personalize the outreach to our clients and speed up that process as we're having these conversations is just, it's unbelievably fascinating to me. Every single day I feel like I'm reading something new, and the speed of that
But it's all
specific
done. We've
industry
tested all
is
the tools, right?
insane.
There's nothing new coming
Nothing
out
will
at this
change
point.
again.
No,
That's
no.
it. Yeah.
I asked my wife, I'm like, did you finish the scroll in the Facebook? Is it done? Is it done? Have you seen the last page? No, she hasn't. All right, look, kidding aside, we're going to go to you, Cammie. So you mentioned trust is the rarest currency. And I hear this, anyone in the financial industry and wealth management. How do you design marketing that meets people at those pivotal life moments, right? That infamous right message, right tone, right timing, or right person. How do you do it?
The way we think about it is that trust is so important. So Aspiriant, we serve high net worth individuals and families. They're entrepreneurs, they're business executives, they're inheritors, they're next generation wealth. So they're at all different stages of life, and different questions are going on, and different reasons are keeping them up at night. So the way we think about it from a marketing perspective is we're meeting our future clients where they're at. So it's truly like connecting, and then knowing when is the time in their, in a life, in a transition that really does benefit when they wake up and go, wow, I need a partner. Market volatility can be one of those, but especially life events. So, your company's going public, your company's getting bought, you're about to retire, and you got to make this money last for a long time. You're ascending to the C-suite. All these different life events. So we've got to be really good at listening for that, and knowing that we've got to meet them where they're at. It's not a transaction business; it's a relationship business. And kind of going back to that trust question, that's a first place where you earn trust, is being a very good listener and really understanding what's going on in their life. What are the questions they're trying to answer, and then approach them with, the right responses and the right support to get them through that.
Quite a challenge. And just turning Amy to you, and I was curious in preparation for this episode, like thinking about financial services versus SaaS, do you see similar trust inflection points with how you think about your partners or merchants on their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And that definitely resonates. I think, financial services specifically, like trust is so important. So, thinking about our partners, they're trusting us to make the right decision for their end small businesses. They want to make sure that we're helping them grow, not get into a cyclical cycle of not being able to make payroll and things like that. So, while they don't actually take on any of that compliance or risk themselves, they're trusting us to act on their behalf and making sure we're not doing anything wrong or unfriendly to their end customer. And then, of course, for small businesses, when they're considering taking on capital, that's one of the biggest decisions they're going to make for their business. They need to make an informed decision. They need to know what the alternatives are. And so just having a partner that, they can feel like they can trust, and that they're there for them and they're going to help them make that right decision is going to be really critical.
And just a quick follow-up question, because trust inherently is built through previous communication, even before that sales cycle, right? Both in the SaaS and the financial services industry. How are you kind of breaking through all of the noise right now? There's so much content out there right now, and inherently that dilutes the ability for a small business or a high net worth individual to trust right off the bat based on communication. So curious, both Cammie and Amy, how are you
Amy,
kind
you
of
wanna go
breaking
first?
through the noise at this point?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I think I think the building the trust aspect needs to come way earlier than when you're talking to a customer. And so it's really showing up around sort of, for partners on our end, it's like I try to build trust a lot of times through our leaders. Our CEO is a fintech veteran who has seen it all, and he has so much experience. And so I really want people to hear from him because he has that expertise. And I think that helps build trust with our partners. And then for the small businesses that we ultimately serve, a lot of that trust is going to be coming from the partner, because the partner is going to be our distribution channel. So how do I arm the partners with all of the right right answers, all of the content that's going to make them more successful to get that adoption?
I love Amy hit on content. I think of this as being true to your target client and really not trying to be, right, we serve high net worth individuals, so that could be anybody. But really we think about who are the ideal clients for Aspiriant, what's happening in their life, why Aspiriant, what do we bring? We talk a lot about complexity, and they're looking for a partner, a steady hand of calm. And so being thoughtful, at the outset when we think about content and anything we're doing that reinforces the services we bring to that target market, answers the questions they're going through, and really being consistent, not trying to talk to everyone. I think that's really an important part of starting the conversation, setting the seeds.
I just wish we were in front of a whiteboard, where we just start mapping things out. So spot on. And for those who are listening, you're here listening to this episode because you want to hear great SOPs, right? That can be turned into AI agents. So you're hearing Amy, Cammie, and Steven talk about the importance of the right message. We just talked about the pressure between personalization and scale, right? There's this tension, the inherent tension. I'd like us to see, we'll see if it's possible, to find a friction in the funnel. And let's see if Amy and Cammie, if you have similar frictions in your funnel, and maybe you don't. So we're about to find out. And if we don't, what do we do with it? We're gonna solve this live. Is there a conversion gap challenge? So Cammie, we're gonna go to you first. If you were to look at the customer journey, where do you see this friction show up, which would give you the highest opportunity to solve with an SOP between personalization and scale?
It is from MQL to SQL, because in the MQL stage, this idea of meeting them where they're at, that you need to make sure you're truly patient. We have a saying, patience and persistence. Right, you're appropriately following up, you're adding value, but there's that, I think for us, our wealth managers are ready to meet and to start serving and helping a future client. Well, sometimes they're not ready. A lot of times they're not ready. They're at a different stage of their journey. So for us, I think about using tools to help us in that process that still feels authentic, that still is really a great deep connection. We still layer on the human touch. I think both are really, really important from the MQL to SQL stage for us.
Okay, we've got an MQL to an SQL. Let's go to Amy. I feel like a show host. What's the answer?
Yeah, and I also think and just not even thinking directly about the stages, but I can relate to that, because before I get any sort of person to talk to our sales or business development team, I want to make sure I arm them with all of the information that I can find already. So, in that MQL stage, how can I make sure that this is really, really qualified, and this is, and I'm only sending them over to the BD team so that they can run a much, much deeper discovery, and they can dig into their personal pain points, or they can go into relationship building. And so that's how I think about how I can really support the process, is just really automating a lot of that upfront information that makes that conversation so much more rich.
So I'm going to make a summary of that before we jump to the next. And in my summary, Amy and Cammie, I'm going to check to make sure you agree with what I'm about to say. Okay, so and the interesting insight, out of some 60, 70 conversations I've had in the last 2 months with growth leaders, mostly on the marketing side, 95% included this mid-funnel. In fact, an episode, if you are listening to and you just watched the first episode of the season, it's entitled Project Dead Zone. Literally, Project Dead Zone. So I would say one is mid-funnel is a universal problem, and we'll talk about it shortly. I think logically, agentic solutions is the first opportunity we have to solve this. And secondly, Amy and Cammie, I think we're entering a world where the marketing folks, are going to own up to an SQL. Okay, let's unpack that a little. Maybe you disagree. I am hearing more and more where marketers are moving to the right, or if you're watching, to your left. I don't know, but you get it, toward the SQL direction. So check in with you, Amy. Agree, or would you state it differently?
I absolutely agree, and that's really how I think about like goals on our team today as well. Because we have an account-based motion, I already know who my target audience is and who I want to put in front of my BD team, and so I'm optimizing for that. There's definitely going to be people who come through that we're not sure and we need to qualify a little bit more, but ultimately we have a target list, and we want to bring in companies from that list.
Phenomenal. Cammie, what about you?
I love what, previously, Amy, you touched on this importance of getting as much information as you can about your future client before you hand over to sales. And I think that's really beautiful. And it does make sense that marketing needs to own this. We're in the right seat for it. And that's going to help, the ultimate conversion, that role and that partnership that marketing plays in that deeper level in the funnel.
Steven, you and I have talked about this extensively. It's so cool to have more validation. That's like, yes, we're actually not nuts. This makes a ton of sense.
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, even just conversations with existing clients and seeing the gap that's involved there. It's incredible that regardless of SaaS, financial wellness, retail on the B2B side, like it seems to be this continuous, to Adam's point, the dead zone that we're all trying to overcome.
So where I want to go next? So we found it, right? We're going to talk mid-funnel. This is it. So now how do you enter a mid-funnel? Amy, you and I had an interesting conversation. One entry point, and then we'll go to Cammie and check in with Cammie, is this contact form, right? So someone is on your website, and they're interested, and we're in year 2025. We actually have a head of product who says, Adam, we are not going to work the way we used to in 2024. I have a feeling now he's going to say, we don't work the way we used to work in March. It's April now. Like everything's changing, right? So we've got a contact form. Do we really need a contact form, Amy? Like, as we think about this new era we're heading in, how do we think about that first step in the process?
So I think that a contact form is necessary, but I think if you're relying on a contact form for the growth of your business, that's too late. You should be capturing buying signals way earlier than when somebody is actually going and asking for more information and asking for a demo. And so we've automated some of this with tools today. It allows us to see who's engaging with our content on LinkedIn, who's specifically coming to our website, how much time are they spending on it, what content are they looking at. Those are really valuable buying signals that, like, when we see a surge in website visits, we're like, this is a prime target. You need to go. Like, we can't wait for that contact us lead submit.
Love it. Cammie, what do you think about contact forms?
Still important in the wealth management space. I think about the buyer journey. It's typically not a long cycle before they engage, unless they're just looking for the content and the questions they're answering. So I do think it's a little bit different on the B2C space, and still an important part. That said, wholeheartedly agree with what Amy's talking about. Like, you've got to be really savvy in looking at your metrics and understanding, can you engage with them before they even fill out the form, or can you create opportunities for them to engage with you also with content?
Contact forms are safe.
Yeah.
Contact forms are safe for now. Okay, so we're now going to go straight into. We're not going to go straight into the middle of the funnel, right? We're going to look at that. And I propose thinking about it in the following way. And then if we have disagreement, I think it's extra bonus, because we're now entering uncharted territories. Uncharted. Because, Amy, you said signals, intent. When we think top of funnel, we're all over that. Now, when we're in the mid funnel, in my head, and this is where I'm curious, I think a starting point and a missing piece, unless you already have it, is how do we look at that middle funnel and continue to monitor signals? Maybe the signals are now becoming broader, maybe because you now know who they are. Maybe there are signals in your CRM. Maybe there are signals of how they're interacting with your content. But how important are signals as one dot? And really, how do you think about it? I'm going to
Yeah,
stop
I
there.
mean,
Too
I
much
think
coffee.
there's buying signals, but there's other signals that I think are just important. When a company makes an acquisition, when they fundraise, when they announce that they're launching a new suite of products, and those are all like new signals, new hiring signals. Like those are all things we take into account. We look at that very holistically. So I think that can help you, going back to earlier topic of personalizing your message and making sure that that really resonates and aligns with their business priorities, but also the buying signals of like, okay, now I'm seeing a surge of interest in my product. How do I activate the team to capture that? So I think signals can come in all forms, and I think it's really important that you maybe evaluate what signals are more valuable for your specific company or product. But I think, signals can come in all forms.
And it's post MQL signals,
Post MQL signals, yes. I think so.
right?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I think about MQL as like I already know who like my MQL sort of target company is, and so I want to know everything about them so that my team can really go activate on that.
Absolutely. Cammie, post MQL. Well, by the way, do you use in your world the term MQL?
We do. Yeah, we sure
Okay.
do. I mean, they're humans too. We remind ourselves that these are humans, but as a marketer and when we're talking within the firm, metrics we're tracking, MQL for sure. And so again, B2C maybe a little bit different, albeit we will look for, as we're targeting, we know we help people who are going through liquidity events, life and liquidity events. That's when you're overwhelmed with questions and decisions you have to make, and really important decisions. So from a liquidity, like a IPO or M&A, we would use those signals that Amy hit on. Middle of the funnel, we are looking at the signals through, what type of engagement they are having with Aspiriant as a metric for, oh wow, this person needs help. They need attention. They need extra love and care. So we do a little bit of all.
And to clarify, do you still continue to monitor signals post MQL, or does it stop and you now look at you continue?
No, we do. Right, we do.
And just to have fun with it, there's B2B, there's B2C. I think you should have another term. It's like B to wealthy individuals or something else, because they have a different public profile. There are different things there are different dynamics.
For sure.
But we're not gonna go. I'm not gonna skew us there. Anyway, so let's go. Go ahead, Steven.
Steven's got something.
No, and that goes back to the point earlier that Cammie and Amy make around the personalization versus scale. The intent signals that you're following are now hyper personalized, but you can still keep that at scale. And it's a little bit unique because it sounds like both of you are really more in the ABM space. Because, I mean, Amy, you already know your potential customers, and then Cammie, I mean, there's a ton of them, but there's not infinite amount of uber wealthy individuals that are going through liquidity. So it seems that the personalization aspect, because you're continuing to monitor that, is going to be hyper important throughout that, what we're calling post
And I'll
MQL
also
stage.
say for us, there's a lot of people who want to manage wealth. So they, when we're talking to future clients of the firm, a lot of times they're overwhelmed with outreach. This goes back to why you got to add value. So it's not just like, hey, we can help you too. You got to know information about their situation, and Aspiriant has to be, we have to position ourselves to be a really strong resource. That's how you differentiate in that kind of ABM example.
Yes.
And Cammie, let's go there. Add value.
Absolutely.
Right. I propose putting a second dot. So a dot is a signal about them. I propose having another dot that is an amazing asset, a blog, a case study, a YouTube video, something that is, and probably timely. I don't think folks are interested in like, oh, this YouTube video is from 5 years ago. Thank you for sharing that with me. So Cammie, let's go to you first. Would you agree that is another dot that's important to line up? It's almost like lining stars.
Let me make sure I understand. What is this dot? It's the content you have, or that you have.
Yes, it's a relevant content for that signal.
It's really, really important. It's hard to stay up on it. It's a lot of demands on marketing. So this goes back to being really thoughtful about your target market. But yes, speaking to them in all different types of mediums, right? So we all consume differently. Some like to read, some like to listen, some like to watch you. And this goes back to trust building. I believe when you deliver it in different mediums and different lengths, our attention span, we all know, right? We get quickly turned off and what's that over there? So we got to catch them very early on. We got to be able to, connect with them in a way that really resonates. This goes back to the beginning when we were saying, you got to meet them where they're at. Same idea. You got to meet them where they're at and where they consume the content.
We're magicians, though. We have unlimited resources now. So we're about to solve everything.
We're expected to.
That's right. Amy, what do you think about the second dot of having, I call it asset, it's content, it's the thing that's going to add value based on the signal that has been detected?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cammie is spot on. Is how do I actually give them the most relevant content and information at that moment in time? And marketing, we can create sales enablement all days based off of what we're hearing or what we're finding from Salesforce. But there's nothing like having a sales call and a prospect mentions one thing and then they get the exact content or a news article or something that addresses that. And so how do you make sure every one of those interactions that you're having with somebody who's a potential customer is going to add value? And so I do think that is going to be something that AI can really help us find and supercharge. I think it's going to be really important.
Every interaction. That's the bar, right? In both of your worlds. If you're not doing that, you're going to lose them. So as if this wasn't complicated enough, we've got a signal. We also have a piece of, let's call it content for now. I call it asset. Cammie, I think content will probably be better. Let's make it a little more complicated. You also need to contextualize it to that relationship. Because if you met them at a conference 3 years ago and you don't mention that in the message, we all understand AI can do a lot now. You're missing the boat. So Amy, is that another consideration as we think about how to, for every interaction to be on point?
Absolutely. I think one of the things we do is we take external information, we take internal information. We even survey, maybe employees have worked at that company before, tell us how that organization works. And so there's public info, non-public info, and then it's how do you stitch it all together to have a powerful message that's going to really land. And so I do think that AI is probably doing a good portion of it today. It's not completely automating it. I would never just let an AI agent kind of automate all of my messages. I think it's doing a good chunk of the legwork, but you still need the person to kind of think about it and contextualize it and make sure that makes sense in that moment in time.
Couldn't agree more. Human in the loop. Cammie, what are your thoughts on this third signal, or third dot, I should say?
Yeah, it's. I love this idea. AI is a really important tool that you can personalize. Then you bring in the human touch. Amy hit on. You're using everything you have to be able to add value. So you're using the public information. You're using any resources you have. You want to talk to them, and then I'll reinforce that our attention spans are short. So the punchier, this cornerstone piece of content that's 1,500 words. It's now, what is a small value add piece of content that you create that really speaks to that future client, their situation, and is punchy and fast. And I think that's another bar that we have to jump over.
And for those, if you've listened to other episodes, you know where I'm about to go. We're just going to continue to suspend reality. We're now going to go into the world of SOP, perfect SOP, right? What are we trying to accomplish? There's a signal, and we're trying to get a response. And we understand that anyone involved in BD sales, they do not have the time to sit there and sift through signals and content and context and all of this. So, open question to you, Cammie and Amy. Let's start maybe with you, Amy. What else what ideal SOP, what would you introduce into what we've already discussed in that gap between the signal that's triggered and a sales professional reviewing that message? Also, if you'd like to go into omni-channel, by all means. We could talk about, should this be LinkedIn, SMS, where should that be? But brainstorm what ideally, if anything would happen in that gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these signals today, we're capturing so many of those signals. We use tools that help us score things and tell us and which one is a higher priority than others. It can automate some of the messaging. And I think it's almost like this is a tool really for sales to automate some of their workflow. They don't have to do all of that research anymore. We have, tools in the background who's running all of this research and ranking them and prioritizing for them all the time. And this is just like valuable information for them to go after. And so I think that we've already started to change some of those SOPs that didn't exist before, but it ultimately is like you still need that human touch to think like, okay, yes, I agree with that, let's go.
Marketing provides this empowerment, this platform for sales to, with ease, make sure that human in the loop and every message is on point.
Yeah.
Because the stakes are high.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you only get a few shots with these people, and so you want to make sure that like you give it your best shot.
But not in your world, Cammie. The stakes are not high. High net worth individuals have plenty of patience, and they don't mind getting a lot of messages, cold messages.
That's right. And I just want to reinforce, you're doing everything you can to connect as humans. So that's the whole thing. You're trying to connect. You're trying to connect your whole humanness. Like I do appreciate also that the world has changed. We don't have. I mean, here I am in my home office. You see my kids' artwork behind me. It's not the branded, screen in the background. You got to bring your whole human to the relationship, and that once again goes back to trust.
So just one more time on the SOPs before I close it out, because I'm so curious. Is there anything we haven't talked about that if you had unlimited resources that you would say, hey, I'd like to be able to do that in that mid-funnel? I think we touched on most of the areas, and maybe there are edges or double clicking and zooming in. But is there anything big that we missed?
No, probably more of that personalization. The faster we can move to create personalized content, the better. And for marketing in a wealth management firm, there's a lot of regulation. We have to move a little slower. That maybe I'm different than you, Amy. Like there's some stuff I want to be able to move faster and be able to, even text with prospective clients, but we have to be mindful about that. Create content really quickly that speaks to them. Video content, quick hits. So we're balancing a highly regulated industry with also just connecting at a authentic level and also at their needs level.
I love that you said the different channel mix there, because I'm curious both from, we'll call it the B to wealthy and the B2B side. Where are you seeing within that personalization? What are the channels that stand out to you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? Is email almost irrelevant because people are just inundated with content at this point? Just really curious where you're seeing success there on the personalization
I can take
side.
a stab first. I think, we do use multiple channels. I think we try LinkedIn is very popular because a lot of our prospects are, executives at different companies. And so that is a popular channel, but I don't want to emphasize only on digital because in person is really, really important as well, and how you show up and have, we only have a few key industry events to really connect with people, a year. And so even thinking about how can I automate some of that information before I go into a meeting. Sometimes our CEO goes and I know who he's meeting with, and I give him my sort of briefing doc of everything I can find that could help him make that interaction much more meaningful.
I love that you said the in person, because in a world of like crazy content inundation, the in person is really what's going to allow you to stand out, and it's that continuous follow up of content deliverability via
Yeah.
digital that then is taken into person. And Cammie, I'm sure that
I'm
that's
so
huge in
glad
your
we're talking
space
about
too.
the omni-channel strategy. It's so important. I'd say there's also, you hit on email. We get inundated with emails, but what we find is that you still have to be in that channel. You have to connect that way, even if they don't click or open it or anything. It reinforces, it's branding, it's trust, it plays into the recipe. But I would say what we're pouring more into is kind of media that brings us to life in our world. Our big differentiators are our people and that passion. Now that means everybody's got people, but you got to bring those people to life, because prospective clients connect with you and say, oh, that person I really get it. I get what they bring to the table. So from an area that we're pouring more into is video, podcasting, more media to demonstrate value prop, bring to life our people and our differentiators, and then importantly answer their questions.
Amazing, amazing. And for those who are listening, if you've got ideas that we didn't cover, comments, throw them in. We talked about the importance of the right message. We've hyper-focused today in the middle of the funnel. We talked about the signals. We talked about the content and assets. We talked about the importance of context, trust, humanity, authenticity. And we're about to enter a new age where AI agents are going to come in and are going to take our SOPs to a whole other level. So if you're not thinking about building them, if you are not researching to understand them, you're probably falling a little bit behind. So we are going to leave you with a piece of advice, and I'm going to start with you, Cammie, which is, what would you say to a fellow CMO trying to future-proof their go-to-market strategy, whether it's smart automation, but without losing the human touch and that builds trust, because we know that is key, especially as more and more people are using AI, as things are starting to sound AI-ish. You can probably see those hyphens and you know exactly what it was, who it was written by. So we're
The
like,
M
just stop
dashes.
that.
They love the M dashes.
That's right, absolutely. So Cammie, what advice would you give?
You kind of took my response there, Adam. It's use, and you hit on this as well. AI is really valuable. It's fantastic. Use it where it supports you in your operations, and frees you up to connect at that human level. And that's really where we're looking. And as we're getting maybe prep for meetings, or as we gather information about people and learning more about them, you maybe can leverage AI, but only so that it frees you up to connect and to really, we talk about our differentiator is also client intimacy. Like it's all about knowing them and really connecting with them and really being deep listeners. So you free yourself up to do really more work on the human level.
I love that. That's the positive of this moment, right? Do more work that's good. That's right for the humans. We're taking out the redundant, the grind work, if you will.
It's more fun. It's the fun work.
It is. It is. Amy, what's your advice?
I would say very similar vein. I know that there's been some fear of AI. AI is taking over our jobs and all of that. And I would say I don't see it that way at all. I think AI is supercharging us. It's supercharging individuals and teams and how we work and making it much more streamlined. And so I think you should fully embrace it, because it's really just going to take your team to the next level.
Supercharging us. Love that. Stephen, what about you?
I think I agree with both Cammie and Amy in the sense that it's allowing us to unlock to Cammie's point, the fun part of our jobs, right? We can think strategically around how are we connecting with these different people and what do they like to talk about and what really are the things that are keeping them up at night, as opposed to just like, I need to send this email because that's what I need to do today. It really unlocks us. And Amy, I love the supercharge aspect. Like, if we can all be supercharged by AI and move faster and have more fun, that's a new
Let's
state
have
that
more
I'm
fun.
totally bought in
All
on.
right, team. Let's have more fun. I'll round it out by just saying that my advice would be keep listening to this podcast. I bring on amazing people, as you could see. So subscribe if you haven't. Throw a comment below. And if you've chatted with me, send me an email what you think about this episode or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. And really appreciate those who are tuning in for doing so. And Amy, Cammie, and Steven, just thank you so much for your time. This has been great.
Thank you, Adam.
Oh, over now.
Thank you. Bye.